Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Ruby Rogues podcast. This week on our panel, we have Valentino Stoll.
Hey there.
Darren Bramer.
Hello, everybody.
John Epperson.
Hey, everyone.
Luke Stutters.
Yes, Ruby time!
I'm Charles Max Wood from Top End Devs, and this week we have a special guest, and that's Ulysse Buonomo. Did I get anywhere close on your name, dude?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Let us know why you're awesome and where the memory leaks are.
Well, hopefully nowhere. But I've been working in a carpooling company for a few years now. Working in Ruby, obviously. I do like to see the memory being ever growing because I know I have to fix something and I have to get my hands in deep library and I don't know. I like having hard challenges to solve. So memory leak in Ruby is especially a hard challenge to solve, in my opinion.
Awesome. I remember working my tail off to become a senior developer. I read every book I could get my hands on. I went to any conference I could and watched the videos about the things that I thought I needed to learn. And eventually, I got that senior developer job. And then I realized that the rest of my career looked just like where I was now. I mean, where was the rush I got from learning? What was I supposed to do to keep growing? And then I found it. I got the chance to mentor some developers. I started a podcast and helped many more developers. I did screencasts and helped even more developers. I kind of became a dev hero. And now I want to help you become one too. And if you're looking forward to something more than doing the same thing at a different job 3 years from now, then join the Dev Heroes Accelerator. I'll walk you through the process of building and growing a following and finding people that you can uniquely help as you build the next stage of your career. You can learn more at devheroesaccelerator.com. Yeah, you wrote this article on how to find memory leaks in Ruby. Not that Ruby has any memory leaks, right? It's perfect.
Yeah.
But, in the off chance, how do you go about solving a problem like this? And I'm curious, just to get us rolling, rather than just dive into the how, where have you seen this? Where have you seen this as an issue?
Well, I've seen that in production code. You can see, just type Ruby malloc on Google and you'll see lots of memory issues, not really leaks per se, lots of memory issues. Yeah, I've only seen it of code I've wrote. I said that in the article. Most of the time, if there is a leak, it comes from you. You just have to read you or your colleagues, but it's rarely from the Ruby guys or the Rails guys. It can be, but most of the time, just look at what you've done.
I don't know, not me. I never write memory leaks.
All you have to do is throw more money at the problem. So I don't really understand why we care. Kind of kidding here, but to be honest,
right?
and to be honest, yeah, shoot, as I was reading this article preparing, I was thinking of I know that I've had memory leaks in the past, but the typical way of solving it has been, all right, well, it's time to reset the server. And then you do that until you have to do it too often. And then you're like, we're resetting the server once every couple of hours. That's kind of extreme, obviously, but it's definitely worked at a place where they let it go that far. And, then you start caring a lot more. And then you waste an entire 2 days tracking down your problem while all your customers are freaking out because they can't get to the site or something. But yeah, I definitely feel like we kind of habitually just let it go. I don't see people talking about it very often. And when I do see people talking about it, the way that I see it being discussed is this is for the nerds, sort of. It's definitely a deep thing that somebody else will deal with. And yeah, anyway, I've only been down this road twice in my entire career.
Yeah, the question of when, I feel, is an excellent question. When should you care about memory leak? When I wrote this article, it was for something that leaked something like 100 megabytes in minutes. So it was quite important. But yeah, you can just restart and you have Puma Worker Killer that does it for you. So you don't even have to care about restarting the servers or anything. But yeah, at some point you're just wasting your computer's energy, your server's energy, and you have to fix that. Yeah, you just have to know when.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you start to care once it affects your garbage collection, takes longer. That can influence affect the performance of your overall server, your application. That's probably that would be one time when you would start to care, I think.
Well, I mean, maybe because I don't think that's an issue we had too much, because since we've been working on Heroku and we just, or anything like that, you just have lots of dynos. So if one server is garbage collecting, another one will just be running the code. So I mean, we've not, I did not go through a lot of GC events to see if that was really a problem, but I don't think that was much of an issue. The most important issue was we were just restarting every minute. So yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty extreme. I thought, since we were kind of like here at the beginning, I thought it was kind of important to like make the distinction, which you did in your article as well, which is good. There's a difference between like the memory leak, and if you're basically, all of us that have ever done PDF, right, know that you just need a crap ton of RAM. That's just what happens. Basically, you might literally just need, it's just the way it is. Your server takes up 32 gigs of RAM just because you do PDFs on your machine or something. It's not the same thing, is what I was getting at.
Isn't 64K all you should really ever need, though? Didn't someone once say that?
Luckily, he's like retired now, and he has a crap ton of money, so he doesn't have to hear everybody.
Doesn't have to deal with
every day.
To be fair to Bill Gates, I think it was 640K, but it turns out he was talking about the number of Microsoft employees rather than bytes of RAM.
Since we're in the process of making jokes, I think they stopped that process of firing everyone all the time. They've been trying to be good people.
I mean, they fired Bill Gates. That's an immediate improvement.
Okay, so memory leaks. Anyway.
Hi, Bill.
So the thing you said about having lots of memory, most of the time that's the issue, and that's why you just have to check before checking for leaks. You just have to check if you ever have a leak. So if you just need more memory or you have a leak. So yeah, just put twice as much as memory as you can as you already have in your server, and just look at the shape of the graph. I'd say that's the way I did it. I don't know.
Yeah, one of the questions that I had. So I'm familiar with Benchmark or whatever, like just the standard Ruby library. And you talked about derailed a whole bunch in your article. It seems like I just was kind of hoping you can maybe talk a little bit about the difference between what derailed is as a benchmark and what regular benchmarking is. Kind of seems like regular benchmarking, we're trying to figure out how long execution time is, whereas derailed kind of seems to be like mapping memory over time. Or that's kind of what I was picking out of it.
Okay, so I think there are two things here which I shall answer. The first, the difference you're talking about, I think, is more the hippie stuff. So the way I compared, if I understand well the question, the way I compared the hips. So I used derailed. I used a function called hip diff in derailed. But in fact, derailed is like a tool set. I think you say that. So you have lots of tools for dedicated mostly to Rails application, but you can make it work with lots of rack-based application without too much boilerplate code. So derailed is the whole tool set you have to test lots of stuff in your code base, and I don't really know half of it, but we can discuss as much as I know. And the hip diff part is the one, I implemented myself in derailed, so this one I can talk a lot more about. And that comes back from an article of Sam Safran the article was called, that was slides called Why Ruby 2.1 Excites Me. Great read. And he gives, in 2.1 Ruby, that's the time where they introduced lots of memory related stuff. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Lots of memory related stuff in Ruby, like the each object. I'm not sure if each object was in 2.1 or before, but anyway, dumping the whole heap. And the idea he introduced there was you can take a first heap dump at some point in time, then a second one, then a third one. And when you have your three heaps, you can do like a diff between the two first one to see what was added in memory between the two. And then the diff between the third and the second one, so that you can see what is retained in memory. So that you are not just at some point in time where you haven't GC'd yet, but you know that is something you've tried to GC and just it didn't. Ruby could not collect the memory.
Mm-hmm.
So to go back to the question, because I think I just deviated a little bit, the difference between derailed and benchmark is just not the same thing. Derailed is made for the complete application, and benchmark is a thing you can have for smaller parts of applications. Like I've just today used the benchmark IPS and stack prof. The Ruby fashion. You just the code you want to benchmark, you put it in the block and just analyze it. But you can use the heap diff method on something you've been, for instance, using benchmark memory with. So it's basically like the benchmark Ruby basic, but it gives you heap dumps and tons of memory information. And you can use that to generate heaps and then compare them. I guess it could make sense. You just have to make sure it's within a timeline that makes sense, like there is A, B, and C in good order so that you can check what's written and added. Hopefully.
Yeah, so it sounds like Derailed is like a large collection of a bunch of different benchmarking tools.
Yeah. And
yeah, I thought that part was pretty interesting. So I don't know. Maybe I'm a nerd by John's definition. I don't know. Well, I'll geek out with you here, Ulysses. No, I'm kidding. So I like that approach. I just wanted to ask. So it makes sense, right? Like you're going to have this test run multiple requests, and you're going to keep track of, well, how many objects are always present, right? So they're just like always around. They're just global, I guess, or just persistent. How many just live for the lifetime of one request? So that's great. That's probably what you want. And then there's others that span more than one request. So maybe they get lost and added to the memory that is just piling up. So when you're using those tools, when you do the heap diff, I think you said, is that telling you just at the aggregate level, like how many objects you have in these different categories? And then you dig into like a profiling tool to figure out like where those actually are? Or does this tool set like also help you pinpoint where those memory leaks are, what objects are coming from? This sounds like pretty interesting way to go about it.
I mean, the tool is just pure magic. the time we used it, the first time we used it, we found the leak like it was just written. Well, no, you have to look at the stack trace that contains your application's name in it, and then you just look and it tells you in which file at which place the memory was allocated. And that's an information that directly comes from the heap dump, in fact. So everything is in the heap dump. What a heapy is the gem that does the diffs. That's directly inspired from Sam Saffron's slides. And what the gem does is just taking all of this gibberish JSON and make it like clear English, telling you like you've retained a lot here. Just go and check out the code and see if it's not an issue. So you don't have to do much afterward. But I mean, sometimes the leak is just, recently there was a leak in Ethan. So Typhus, maybe you have to check out your code bases. And this one is trickier, and I think people tried to fix it before me, so I didn't dig through the issue. But it was a leak, I believe, in C code. Well, it just gets a lot harder at that point.
That sounds very cool. Yeah, it sounds like it's pointing you right toward where the issue is. I mean, is it something that you still just do ad hoc, or is it sounds like it's pretty automated? Do you make it part of the build pipeline, or how do you use it?
That could be an idea. The issue I see with that is, the leak we found that led to the article was quite straightforward because it was middleware based. So you just had to have the status or info basic routes, and you hammer it and you can see the memory grow. But sometimes it may be in a request that's in some heavier process, like a post request that only can happen if you have some conditions. So I feel like if you want to test for leaks in the whole system, you would need to do it in production. And in fact, I've done it a bit, but then you slow down servers. And you have to pinpoint one specific server, because if I'm checking for my diff on one dyno and then on another one, it just does not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So in the build process, I'm not sure it's possible. It can be done in production, but you are or in staging environment, or if you have like a huge company with canary servers, maybe you can try that. But I would not. Well, I would recommend to take care about performance when you're doing that.
Yeah, so maybe the better pattern is to just monitor your memory graphs. If you see, memory spiking up and staying up, or going just on an ever increasing path, then maybe you do this. Yeah, I mean, there's a test coverage issue here also, right? Like you were saying, like if I'm going to do that type of test or examination, you need to choose what is my request A, B, and C. What are my subsequent requests? Because some combinations may cause an issue.
And as John said really early in the podcast, but I think that's quite important. Just you don't need to focus too much on memory leaks, or you will start to build some like really complicated CI and really complicated production tools that help you detect the leaks early. But that will be useful for the Ruby world, but maybe not for your company, and maybe they would like you to work on some more important stuff. That makes me think, if there is one thing I really wanted to mention in the podcast, is that's the bundler leak and the Ruby mem database. I can go and check links just after explaining what it is. Bundler leak is just a tool. You type bundle leak and it shows you the known memory leaks. And the database behind is the Ruby mem database. And I wanted to mention that because I think it deserves more love. I think there are lots of leaks that are found by individuals that do not know the existence of this database and do not help fill it. And there is a quite simple form. You just have to say this gem made my application leak at this version, and that's it. And that will help tons of developers not having to find the leaks. I can just.
Is this what the Bunderly gem uses?
Yeah.
I'm no snitch.
What did you say?
There's two things in this article, Ulysses, that I'm going to admit I did not know about or I've forgotten about. First is what was it called? The bundler leak.
Yeah.
That's the first compelling reason I've ever seen for using bundler. There may it's literally the first time I've seen something to do with bundler where I thought, yes, that could help me. So that's amazing.
Dependency hell is so compelling, but memory leaks maybe.
I have a server per app. I've got all the servers.
I got to tell you, I come into the podcast every week just mainly because I want to know what is Luke going to say this week, and so there we got our first glimpse.
Wait, does anybody have another reason for coming on?
Bundler Leak is an amazing resource, and I had no idea that was there. So thank you very much. The other one, which is perhaps a slightly more serious mission, is Gemalloc.
Yeah.
I had no idea about what Gemalloc. I mean, am I being embarrassing here, or what is gemalloc?
I don't have huge knowledge about the malloc team, the gmalloc team, but I can talk about what gmalloc has done to Ruby and why it is important to know about it. It is important to know about it because you can just do like div for on the memory you're using just by setting gmalloc, and it will not break anything really. There is already a discussion. Well, it has been ongoing for years, so I don't think it will be in Ruby anytime soon. But there is a discussion about adding it. Tenderlove, Aaron Patterson is talking about it like all the time. Mike Perham as well, and it's just a better malloc in free algorithm than the cmalloc that's used in Ruby. And the nice thing about Ruby is that you can have it, how do you say it in C, dynamically shared library. So you can just add jmalloc.so or jmalloc. I don't know what in your in an environment variable, and then you just have shipped with Ruby. You don't have to do anything else, and you will div for the memory you're using basically.
Is this why everyone tells me to stop using System Ruby?
Maybe. But if you still do like malloc, I don't remember because I've not been using it for a lot of time now. But that's malloc arena max. You can just set malloc arena max to 2. If I get the issue right, but please correct me if I don't. Malloc arena max is something that tells malloc to like stay in a little box, and since in Ruby you don't need too much from malloc, if you don't say that, it will just grow and let a lot of objects live and will harm your memory performance, if that makes sense.
So, I think that's really helpful. I genuinely think a lot of people don't know about this stuff. I certainly didn't. And it could be saving a lot of memory.
Yeah, I intend to soon write an article on just the little tools like that in Ruby. That's just no-brainer. Like, you have to use that because, GitHub is working with gmalloc. I don't have the list of company, but I think Shopify is, since Tenderlove is working at Shopify. It makes sense. And lots of huge companies made the move to go from malloc to gmalloc, and no one is complaining. So, yeah.
Yeah, we use it at Doximity. It's really great. It definitely reduces a lot of long-term fragmentation. And the nice thing, too, is there's a Docker bundle for it so that you can just, instead of from, Ruby latest, you could take from Ruby Jesse or something like that for gmalloc that has it already bundled and ready to go. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, are you getting 4x memory reduction usage? I don't know. Like, it's been, I have a Docker container that I made a long time ago that has it installed, so I haven't even thought about this in a really long time or like tested it.
I wasn't on the team that went and released it, that I could find out, but I know it was successful. So I don't know if it was 4X.
Oh yeah.
What he means is, of course, of course we did.
And this is separate to garbage collection, right?
To Ruby's garbage collection.
Yeah.
Well, Ruby's garbage collector calls malloc and free. I don't know tons about Ruby's internal, but hopefully it does. So that's not completely separate. But I really, I'm going on a dangerous terrain here. But there is a great talk I could link there, going deeper about that and telling the separation between Ruby's memory scope and malloc memory scope, and the importance it has mostly for library C extension library developers.
Well, malloc and free in C, you're just, I need this chunk of memory and then free up this chunk of memory. So the rest of it is probably just reference counting internal to Ruby. I haven't looked at how the garbage collection works, but I'm assuming that Ruby just has an internal counter that says so many things are pointed to this, and when nothing's pointed to it, the next time the garbage collection runs, it scrubs it out, it frees it, right? And so you get a memory leak when something's holding on to a reference to something, and the reality is nothing's ever going to use it again, but that reference is floating out there for whatever reason because it's within scope of something that's not getting cleaned up. And so what you're looking at then is you're looking at, okay, I've got a memory leak that I've got to take care of. In other words, I've got to make sure that this scope is getting cleaned up so that anything that it's pointed to also gets cleaned up. And so you're effectively playing games with what scopes do I hold on to and which scope don't I hold on to, or what closure do I hold on to, what closure don't I hold on to. And yeah, if you're thinking JavaScript and oh gross, Ruby has closures too, and it's it's just part of life. And so yeah, you start thinking stacks and closures and all that stuff, and there are techniques that you can use to clean that up, and that's what you're playing with here. And then, yeah, Ulysses is talking about dynos on Heroku, and you get charged for the number of dynos you're using and how long they're on. And so if you want to cut costs, you cut down on the amount of memory you use so that you don't have to run as many dynos as often, right? And so now you're talking real money. And that, I mean, that's what this boils down to. This is what your boss cares about. And at the end of the day, that's the game we're playing. Same with John's talking about Docker. The number of Docker containers you're running in Kubernetes or on AWS or whatever image you're running up wherever you're running it. It's the same deal, right? It's how much computer we're using and what's it costing us.
Yeah.
I think what is our orchestration layer
most
complexity?
Most people are just trying to get things working, right? But eventually you get to the point where you're like, okay, the thing's working, but now I want to save money for whatever reason. And yeah, this is totally where you should care. I mean, you can care about it earlier than that, but generally when you do, you're prematurely optimizing, right? Like that's sort of the argument.
Yeah. The other place this shows up though is if you're running it on Metal, right? So you have a server in a data center somewhere and it's starting to slow down or starting to crash because it's running out of memory. That's the other place where this shows up, right? Because now you're hitting a physical limit.
Or a VM too. Same thing. If you have to care for the thing and keep it alive versus pretend that it's a throwaway. Yeah.
And there's some good kind of baselines Nate Berkespik shared a while ago on kind of some Ruby object count rules or allocation counts. So if you ever look at the Rails logs, you'll see they even provide it now. Every request will show you how many allocations happen for that request, which is nice. But I'll post a link in the show notes about it. But basically, like at 100,000 allocations and more, focusing on those specific allocations, that's kind of like that's where it starts to become problematic. And like, if you can reduce object allocation for requests or whatever processes that are allocating more than that number, it's kind of like a good baseline to, okay, well, we should probably look at this. And we could see some significant, speed ups if we focus on memory allocations at, I think it was 100,000 or something like that.
This is why I feel sorry for newer developers, and it's not just because of JavaScript. People doing modern Rails development will never experience that thrill of watching the production server RAM graph rise, realizing you haven't got any more servers. This is it. You've got to desperately bring that curve down as it's creeping towards the 32 gig mark. Those were the days.
Yeah, well, what's interesting too is that when we're talking about allocations, I mean, we just don't think in those terms when we're writing our code, right? As so you're thinking Rails, so you have your active record object, and then you've got your connection object in active record. You've got, there's all this stuff that happens underneath. Your controller is a class that instantiates an object, and there's Rails Metal that's under the covers and Rack under the covers, and all of those instantiate objects as well. And so so each of those instantiate a certain number of things, and so all of those get allocated onto the heap. And so, yeah, I've been programming Ruby and Rails for 16 years, and I don't have a good concept of what gets allocated down the stack and up the stack onto the heap when a request comes in. I don't. And it's because I'm not thinking in those terms when I'm writing my code.
Well, that's kind of the point.
Yeah, I go back and unwind it when I have
the allure of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point in the allure of Rails is that you don't have, and Ruby, you don't have to think about
Right.
those things, right? You can focus on your app. It does sometimes become a bit of a leaky abstraction when it does cause an issue and you do have to dive into that.
Right.
Hopefully that's rare. But yeah, in general, right, the positives tend to outweigh the negatives.
That also seems that brings up a good point about benchmarks in general. And it just reminds me of, as an example, the Fast Ruby benchmarks, if you're familiar with them, by Juanito Fatas. But basically, you can find comparables for, okay, like iterating through an array this way versus this way is going to be faster just based on throughput performance. So if you're just benchmarking iterations per second, this one will be faster. But if one allocates more memory than the other and you're doing it repetitively in your app, over time, that may drop off, right? And Ulysses, I really like that you wrote about the derailed benchmarks, because that kind of focuses more on that over time portion of benchmarks, which I think get dropped a lot. So, I mean, you can go and benchmark iterations per second, but if you're not thinking about these other things, which is easy to do and kind of take Ruby for granted, is over time, you may start to see your app degrade and wonder why. And I personally would love to dive more into derailed. Do you have I saw that they have like a SHA option where you can provide multiple commit SHAs. Do you use that at all to compare changes in your code over time and see if any performance degrades?
I'd be really happy to use that sometime, but it is mostly made for library developers and mostly made for Rails developers. In fact, developers of Rails. You got the point. But yeah, you just can give, as you say, two commits, and it will tell you which one performs better. But not only build time, not only short-term performance, but long-term memory and time performance to make sure you don't forget anything. And it was built by Richard Neiman, basically just for developing Rails and making sure you don't regress at some points. On some specific parts. I think there was another performance mem over time. Oh yeah, that's the perf mem over time. I've been using it a lot because it quite well shows you this idea. It shows you the graph you want to see before going to production, if you have any issue, you want to see it. So yeah, I don't know much more about the stuff in Derail. Unfortunately, since now I can contribute, I'm a contributor, and since I've stopped contributing to Derail. So, well,
it's the best way to get to know stuff is by sending them code.
Yeah. Or
I get all my code on Amazon Prime. Comes in 2 days.
What it's called? I don't know if you know about Bundle Open, another great bundler tool. We were talking about Bundler Leak. This one is shipped with Bundler. And so you just can type bundle open some library, and it will open with your favorite editor the path of this library, so you can hack it right away. And that's a nice way to start hacking at libraries you're using in your code base and know a bit more about them and about their internals and understand why you have such performance issue in the first place. I could talk about the leak we had internally, and in fact, it was just a misunderstanding of documentation of we are using Bugsnag, and the documentation is giving a way to add a middleware so that when you raise an issue, you can add context or add data. And we thought basically we had to add this middleware every request, but it was made to be at initialize, and that's it. That's the leak that made me write the article. Just read the README and you won't have leaks in the end.
The value of documentation.
So you just moved it into a Rails initializer? Is that what the deal was?
Yeah, there is a scope issue because the idea was to add user information, in the Bugsnag so that we can directly help the user related to the bug. And you cannot do that simply in the initializer. You have to have some way of having them communicate. And well, the way we used was finding on Google that there was already a middleware doing so and using it. So, yeah, but basically you can just hook into a rack middleware at initialize and get information from there, and it can be enough.
Gotcha. Are you under increasing pressure to ship code faster than ever before? Then it's time to work smarter with Raygun's modern approach to error and performance monitoring. Raygun gives you instant visibility into the health of your software, and what makes it so unique is that it not only tells you when something's gone wrong, it shows you exactly where it's gone wrong and how to fix it, right down to the line of code. Made by developers for developers, Raygun has built a suite of monitoring tools that are used and loved by thousands of software teams every day. Monitor every corner of your tech stack with widespread language support and native integrations with GitHub, Jira, Slack, Bitbucket, Octopus Deploy, and more for even greater visibility. Visit Raygun.com to resolve issues faster and deliver flawless digital experiences for your users. That's Raygun.com to get started on your free 14-day trial with plans starting from as little as $4 per month.
So which one of these approaches exposed it for you?
Sorry, between which and which?
Which approach to tracking down the leak exposed it to you? Was it the J.E. Malik, or was it the Derailed, or was it one of the other tools? Or
I'm not sure I fully understand what did you say? Which expose?
Which tool showed you what the problem was?
Oh, it was the Derailed and the heap diff. It was Derailed showed the memory was ever growing, so there was an issue. And we made a first, I think there is a derailed heap, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ran that and I saw lots of things and it wasn't clear. And then I implemented the derailed heap diff to make all the noise go away. And using that, we saw the leak. Yeah. And we pointed at the code and then I could get blame and
get blame.
Yeah.
That's a good way to start a fight. I mean, find out who caused the problem.
Yeah, most definitely.
Would you like to hear, Ulysses? Would you like to hear a memory leak garbage collection story?
Yeah.
This is. I'm going to take you right the way back to Ruby 1.8, and we had just a Ruby app, not a Rails app, that was running on a computer in various locations, and this used the GNOME graphics library bindings through C, presumably using the GNOME make a window on the screen, make a button gem. And this program was a long-running program, and part of it had an enormous memory leak because it was drawing sprites to a screen. Remember sprites before we had image tags? Well, this used sprites, and it had an enormous memory leak. And because the memory leak was somewhere in the Ruby atmosphere, then we couldn't track it down. So what we did was we used to do gc.enable and then gc.start. And this brought the memory down until the sprite moved, at which case the memory would shoot back up. So we had gc.enable and gc.start running on each kind of update cycle of the page as the user would drag the sprite across the screen. And at one point it was so bad, I think we either had a kind of gc.start exclamation mark, but I don't think there was a gc.start exclamation mark to kind of make it start garbage collecting harder. So it was actually a kind of the exclamation mark after gc.start was actually a kind of hashtag comment out the exclamation mark. But that was the kind of comment of it, kind of, we really need to start the garbage collector. And then I think Ruby 1.9 came in and this all quietened down. But that was our survival, just to keep this thing running for our customers. But that was a kind of calling out to C. And the C thing does something bad. I'm not blaming the developers here. I'm sure it was us. But when you're in that situation, then sometimes you have no control over C land. The C, you need to use the C library. The C's done something bad. You're back in Ruby. All your RAM's gone. What do you do? Is that something you've dealt with? Because I know you deal with, was it the Geo library?
Yeah.
I think that has C bindings in it. So have you had to fight the memory demon with Ruby and C?
Yeah, one of the first commits I've made to RGO was fixing a leak, and fortunately we were not using the tool, but it was like there is one tool called invalid reason that just tell you why is your so RGO is for geometries, and why your shape is invalid, and it was just not it's not garbage collecting because it was in C and it was our work to collect the garbage and we were just not doing it. So anytime one were to call invalid reason, it would generate a new string in C by the geos library, and we were never getting rid of it. And yeah, the daemon you're talking about is quite important, because when you're going when you're using a C extension, you really have to trust the authors. So yeah, please trust me and use RGO. But you really have to trust the authors, because the way Ruby does it is like you wrap your C structure they called it type data struct, so that you can hook to Ruby's GC, and when Ruby is getting rid of an object, it calls your free function that you've wrote. But from the perspective of the Ruby user of your C extension, you just cannot know simply what is going on. And well, the worst thing is when you're getting the good old I'm losing my words. The thing you don't want to see, not an exception, even worse, the core dump, and all of
we
that.
We saw a lot of those. We used to see a lot of core dumps, unless we called gc.start a lot.
Well, if you want
seg fault?
Sir?
Are we talking seg faults here?
Yes,
It's unlucky to even say seg fault out loud. That's one of the. If you're a superstitious developer, it's like being an actor. They never say the word Macbeth. If you say the word seg fault, then the seg fault fairy will come and visit your production servers. So don't
if you say its name 3 times, it appears.
You say it 3 times into a SSH prompt. That could be our Halloween episode.
Hey, there we go.
On seg faults. There is a good way to generate one if you want with Ruby 2. I think it started in 2.6. They introduced GC Compact, and so it's nice. The link on YouTube I shared is the way they introduced that, and so they introduced a compaction algorithm that just helps avoid having Ruby expand and use a lot of memory. And if you gc.compact, lots of library would crash. Lots of C extension libraries would crash. Now most are fixed, but at the beginning, lots would crash because it would mix with references, and then if you're using references badly in C, you know what happens. So yeah, gc.compact, you can try it in production, and you'll see. Nice things happen because you will get a more compact heap and hopefully less memory usage, but you may see some issues.
The only thing scarier on a server monitoring graph than high RAM is 0% CPU.
0% CPU usage? How can you have that? Like when you are swapping too much, and then I've never encountered the 0% CPU.
Well, it means the app's crashed, so you're not running it anymore. So suddenly your server's running brilliantly. If there's no load on the production server, something's gone terribly wrong.
Yeah, of course. That makes sense. But yeah, so Ergio, that was one of the important challenges while the C extension library, the C library bindings more. There was this leak, but there may be others, and we are currently in the process of reshaping the C parts, and I'm trying to follow as much as I can this pattern to not write C code. The best way to write good C code when you're doing a Ruby extension is just to not write C code. So we are going to try to limit the C extension. It's important to still have it because it's in terms of performances, it's enormous what you can get. And when you're working with geometries, it's really important to have that. That's why my company invested in me working open source and on Ergio. It's because it's just way faster than working in plain Ruby, but it comes with a cost of shadow C code you don't want to mess with in your everyday Ruby developer work. And yeah, so but hopefully the Ergio 3.0 will soon be here and will fix a lot of stuff. We are in the process of fixing a lot of stuff, and hopefully it will be fast and secure.
Well, while we've got you on here, you looking for help with that?
Yeah, of course. We are still. So I've been a maintainer for 10 months now. I'm working with Keith in America, but we are still looking for more maintainers, mostly because the Ergio code base is huge. There is the Ergio core code base on which we are both working, and we are trying to having one code base, one maintainer, if possible. And we have not achieved that right away. So there is the Ergio shapefile, Ergio GeoJSON, Ergio, and there are tons of tools you can add to Ergio. It's a really complete tool, so it needs a lot of maintainers and contributors. I think it's worth it for the Ruby community to have such a tool. And it's the only, there is GeoKit as well, but it's the only one that has this kind of performances and this kind of finesse you can have on geometry computation. So yeah, it's quite important to have people involved in the Ruby community, I think, so that we can continue to have this project going on for some time.
So if people want to get involved, how do they do it?
There is an issue. I'll just link it.
Okay.
There is new maintainer needed issue, but quite easy to see, in fact. It's pinned, but let's go. And so that's if you want to become a maintainer. But if you just want to contribute, we've started added help wanted and good first issue tags on our GitHub repositories. So just look at the issues and look at the good first issue, help wanted. And if you like the C code and if you want to get involved right away in the next 2 or 3 months, I think we'll be working on the C refactoring, the C API refactoring. So just post a message, for instance, on that issue, or anyone having C API in the name, and I will see it. And I think if someone wants to get down to coding C extension for Ruby, I'd be glad to give them pointers on how to do it, and if they can contribute back, it would be so nice.
Awesome.
That makes me think of one thing I did not mention in the article nor in the podcast yet. But we've talked a lot about Ruby internals. I'd suggest, if you want to know more about Ruby internals, to read the Ruby hacking guide. It's it's Ruby 2.1, so it's a bit old, but just gives you the overall information about Ruby, and it's quite nice. And if you don't like how the code blocks are written, so did I. So you can just go to my GitHub, and I've forked the project, and you can read it with better code.
Yeah, proper syntax, brilliant.
I mean, doesn't everybody do that? Like so I work with a designer. I've worked with designers on multiple projects, and sometimes they give you HTML, and you're just like, this is formatted terribly, and you just take it straight to the HTML formatter, or JSON or anything. You're just like, I don't like how this looks, so you just take it to the formatter.
Yeah.
I fully support your decision. If I don't like how something
auto format things,
yeah,
and then just any repo you make.
Oh yeah, well,
that sounds like an awesome feature. Yeah, just have like built-in like RuboCop and prettier settings, and you're in a repo.
It's kind of funny because
you're just like, I want it to look like this setting.
The famous Ruby committer Nobu, and he's known for having like the most commits of any committer, and it's because he has like a bunch of post commit formatting that and like scripts that he runs on any commit to Ruby, and then will like recommit as himself just the formatting fixes. And so there was a Ruby Kai a long time ago where it showed like, oh, the top contributors to Ruby, and it's like always Nobu like eclipsing everybody, and he's like, oh, but I cheated, so it doesn't really count.
I will admit to the fact that like I have, especially in recent years, like I just keep forgetting to run RuboCop or whatever I'm using at the time, right? And I have done that a lot. Though I'm usually amending my commits, but before I push. But yeah, I am also guilty of the post commit fixing it to look acceptable.
If you look on the OJ contributors in the commit, not in the commit fashion, but in the code fashion, you will see me adding 10,000 and removing 10,000 lines of code. And I just went and it was like spaces and tabs mixed. And I was like, okay, I've introduced a formatting tool that tried to change the least possible. But yeah, 10,000 lines of diff. And well, OG's maintainer and author is just so nice, and he integrated it and made it look even nicer. And now the code base it's like fresh and new. So yeah, big up Peter Oler. Nice guy to code with. If you want to be involved in C code, you can also do peer to OJ. He will accept those. Give good hints to you. I could tag OJ as well, but I think everyone knows about it.
Do we already put it in chat? Yeah, I guess we have links to it in chat, so I think we're good.
Yeah. All right, I think we need to get a pick soon. So, all right. Well, yeah, let's go ahead and do picks. Before we do that, Ulysses, how do people find you online if they want to talk to you? Twitter, GitHub, stuff like that. LinkedIn.
Buonomo, as you pronounced it formidably at the beginning of the show on GitHub. I have to admit I'm not really active on Twitter, but it's Ulysse, and there you get me on Reddit. But I've been I've been writing a blog since 3 or 4 months now. So if you want to read a little bit about what I'm encountering, it's not only Ruby. In fact, I think I have not yet wrote any article about Ruby. So, but the next one will be about Ruby, I promise. So yeah, you can find me here. And if you want to know more about the company, of course, we are looking for developers. So if you want to know more about the company, you can go to github.com/it, and yeah, that's where you can see me these days.
All right, cool. We'll put all that in the show notes. Hey, folks, it's Charles Max Wood, and I just wanted to jump in here and let you know about something that I'm doing. It's free. It's out there just to help you get answers to your questions about the things that you're running into with your career. So if you have questions about how to get further ahead in your career,
how to start a podcast, how to get a better job, how to get a raise, how to deal with a situation at work with your boss, or just maybe you're stuck and you don't know where to go next. How do I get from junior to senior, senior to whatever's next? How do I become a speaker? How do I get to the next level? That's what I'm out here to do. So every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Mountain Time, I'm going to be doing a call, and it's going to be free, totally free. Go to devchat.tv/level up and you can register for the call. It's using Zoom's webinar software, so it's pretty straightforward. And what we're going to be doing is I'll do 10 minutes and I'll just show you how I do some form of how I level up. And then we'll just answer questions. And it's not going to be a question and answer like, hey, what's your favorite flavor of ice cream? And then I say Rocky Road or whatever, right? Instead, what we're looking for is more along the lines of, I have this situation. How do I handle it? I'm trying to figure this thing out. How do I figure it out? I'm trying to stay current. How do I stay current? And if you have any of those kinds of questions, I'll bring you on the call. We'll ask some deeper questions. We'll make sure we get you a solid answer. And I'm really looking forward to helping some people out. There will be no sales, no selling, no nothing on these calls. It is literally just 10 minutes of training and then Q&A. So you can go check it out at devchat.tv/level up. Let's do some picks. Let's start with Valentino. I'm just going to go in order as I see them. Valentino.
First pick I have is a new gem by, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Amatsuda. He has this gem called the Lazy Rails Routes, and basically just lets you wait to draw all of the Rails routes tables until you need them. And so it can significantly increase the execution time, or not increase, but drop the execution time. Say if you're in a rake task or something that only does a handful of things and you don't need all of the Rails routes drawn and you have thousands of routes, it can definitely significantly improve performance. So I recommend checking that out. It's pretty awesome. Another recommendation I have is there's now an Nginx playground, thanks to Julia Evans, where you can just enter in your Nginx config and it will show you what that configuration does. It's really neat. I recommend checking it out. And another one I have is I just came across this chat monitor tool for Minecraft. It's a Minecraft plugin, and you can basically use it like a Slack chat API and monitor for specific things that are said in the chat and do various things. So it's definitely really cool. It's from Muriel Schottlander, who's one of the system architects for Wikipedia. So definitely check that out.
Nice. Darren, do you have some picks?
I do. I'm going to go with the entertainment category first and maybe I'm late to the party. I don't know. But the Squid Game on Netflix is an extremely entertaining show. It is a Korean show. It has reminiscent of the theme of the Hunger Games, but does have, I will say, mildly disturbing violence in it. So if that bothers you, just be forewarned. But very good. A lot of people are talking about it. I believe actually Netflix has said it could end up being their biggest show. So that's something to look for. In the technology space, I've actually been doing more documentation and content production lately. So I've probably used RDoc more than I've used anything in the last week, but I'm also putting together a new site about Ruby and Ruby apps in particular. So hopefully soon I'll be able to announce the launch of that. But I was looking at different content management solutions, and there's a couple in the Rails space. Refinery is probably the biggest one in terms of community and support. I actually started using another one called Chameleon, and what attracted me to that at the beginning was I could just drop it in right alongside my existing Rails application. So in addition to anything I've got going on, any capabilities or services there, now all of a sudden I've got a content management capability built into it. So pretty nice. There's some nice themes for it as well. So those are my picks for this week.
Nice. John, what are your picks?
So I have two. Dude, Calendly has been saving my life this week, so I have to give them another bump, but I can't give them any more because I have to get a sponsorship deal if I do. But they literally, whatever, man. They're just really awesome for scheduling stuff if you have that problem. and I just have to give kudos. So, but as far as fun thing, it was funny that you were mentioning a Minecraft plugin, Valentino, because I have one too. So I have some people that in my Twitch community that are like, they're on Bedrock, and then I have some people that are like Java people for Minecraft. And if you are not aware, technically they are not compatible. However, there's a super amazing plugin out there called Geyser that allows both Java and Bedrock people to connect to the same server. And it's pretty awesome because now I just don't even have to like tell people to like, oh, well, sorry, we're all just going to be Java, or sorry, we're all just going to be Bedrock. I got to have my cake and eat it too. And I love things that are like that. So anyway, that's my recommendation. That's my fun recommendation for this week.
Nice. Luke, what are your picks?
I've got to pick it. I'm sorry, Ulysses, but I have to pick the classic French cartoon Ulysses 31. This was translated into English, and they've uploaded the English intro onto YouTube. It had an intro theme so good they got sued for it. True story. But traveling a lot this week, and I've been listening to Pitch Perfect. I expect, Chuck, you've already heard this, but this is a really good, highly recommended kind of selling things to people audio book. That's a really great book. It's read by the author. Can't recommend it enough. And finally, not very high tech pick, but a pick that saved my life this week after I had to resurrect an ancient project very quickly and couldn't get the server online, is the encrypted cookie gem for Sinatra. And the reason I'm picking that is because it turns out if you want to kind of run Sinatra without Passenger in the way, cookies stop working when you're using proxy pass and Apache. So this absolutely saved my life. The encrypted cookie gem will solve all your passengerless problems.
Awesome. I'm going to throw in some picks. A lot of them are just kind of fun. One of the things, real quick, just kind of utilitarian with the podcast. So I've been working on forwarding all of the shows over to Top End Devs and over to Fireside.fm. One issue I ran into, which is kind of fun in Fireside, is that RubyRogues.com and AdventuresInML.com, both of them, for some reason, have issues with their SSL certificates right now. So
I just like to stop you there, Chuck. And as you know, I've been pioneering the use of classic code instead of legacy code. So can we please stop saying expired SSL certificates and start saying retired certificates?
Oh, they're not expired. They're just not. Yeah, anyway. So they're just not working. I don't know why. So anyway, I'm going to throw out a couple of board games, but I wanted to throw out, I put in a gist the script that I'm using to redirect all of the podcast episodes from in Nginx. It actually generates from one RSS feed, the original RSS feed, to the new RSS feed in Fireside. It generates the config in Nginx so that it'll redirect you to the proper place because the slugs don't line up. So anyway, that was actually kind of fun to write. Took me about a half hour. And so then I copy and paste it over to the server. And yeah, I've got this heck of long config now because it's got.
Are you trying to tell us you meta-programmed your Nginx configuration?
No, I programmed something that generates Nginx and then I copy pasted it. So not meta-programmed at all. So it's hard-coded. Anyway, so I just finished Caliban's War, which is the second Expanse book. I've been rereading them because the last book is coming out in November, and I've really enjoyed this book, so I'm going to pick that. And then a friend of mine, who's my neighbor, he owns a game shop, him and his wife, and they have a business partner who I don't know. They own a game shop, and they are working on running like this. People can come and sit down and play board games at the conference, and they have like 6 games that they can pick from. And I'm one of the hosts that will sit down and help them play the game when people come through for like 4 hours. And then I get a free ticket to the conference for 2 days. And, and so you get to go play board games with other people. And anyway, so I've been learning these games, and a couple of them are really, really fun. So I'm going to pick them. The first one is called Lost Ruins of Arnak, and I am really, really digging it. We played it last night again, just the three guys. So it's the 3 couples, and him and his wife, another friend of ours, and his wife, and then me and my wife. And then he's got a couple of other volunteers, but we just keep getting together and playing through these games. And anyway, it's been super fun. So we played that one like 3 or 4 times. And then the other one that we've been playing is Steampunk Rally Fusion. And I'll just kind of walk you through what these games are. So the Lost Ruins of Arnak it's got a little bit of deck building, a little bit of research tree, and a little bit of exploration. It's kind of a weird hybrid, but it's a fun game. Steampunk Rally is more you're building. So you're an inventor and you're building this basically a racing machine, and you roll dice, and the dice enable different parts of the machine to move you further along the track, and whoever gets furthest along the track wins. And so each piece of the machine does different things and so one piece may enable something on another piece of the machine that may enable another piece on the machine, right, to get you along. And anyway, it's super fun. So those are kind of the ones that I've been playing that I've really been enjoying. So I'm going to pick that as well. But yeah, just really, really getting into that and enjoying some board games. I really love board games. So I'm going to pick those. And yeah. And then if you're looking for a way to level up your career, whether you're just trying to get established as a junior developer, whether you're trying to kind of expand to become a senior developer, or you're a senior developer trying to figure out what's next, I am happy to help you figure things out. Go to topenddevs.com/coaching, and you just give me your email address and your name and just a little bit more information so that I kind of know where you're at and how to help you out. And we'll set up a time. Usually what I do is I do like an hour to an hour and a half's worth of just free coaching, just to kind of, so you can figure out how I operate, and I can figure out whether or not I can help you, and we can kind of help you figure out where you're headed. And then if we think it's a better long-term fit, that's when we kind of propose more of a coaching package. People are asking, so, I feel bad not paying you, but the point is I want you to know that the value's there, and I want to know that I can actually help you before I actually say, hey, give me money. So that's what that looks like. So go to topenddevs.com/coaching for that. Ulysses, what are your picks?
Well, I had not prepared anything, but since I'm French, I wanted to introduce to who does not know yet Marcel, which is the next Docker basically, but French. It's a bit of a joke about the French government wanting to make a sovereign operating system, but go ahead and read the README. It's really fun. Apart from that, I would go for something like that changed my way of using IRB from a typo. You can just type ls on your IRB console, and you'll see you'll see informations like ls in bash, but for Ruby. It's so nice. So yeah. There is no link related. Just type ls in IRB and you'll see. And that's it, I think.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming. This was a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for having me. That was quite nice. A lot of stories, a lot of things.
Definitely.
All right. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up right here. And until next time, folks, Max out.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CacheFly.com to learn more.